Hello, everyone, again. Welcome you to today's focus session on, I'd say, one of the most underestimated aspects of application. And a lot of time, I really call it the game changer. This is the part of your application that really livens up the whole profile building that you're doing, the activities list. So I'm Faraz. I'm a co-founder with Let's Unbound, and I'm genuinely excited to guide you through today's session. Whether you're beginning your college journey today or you're already deep into your applications, largely students who are in grade 11, just getting into that groove, this session will help you get a clear roadmap to transform what you do, what you have to do to create that compelling story around you. So, for many students, the activity list has normally been defined by counselors as just various boxes that you need to tick in various headings. But for a successful application, it's a platform to really stand out. So, in the next 40 minutes, you're going to understand what colleges are actually looking for specifically within those activities, learn how to move from, let's say, participation into leadership, break down how to write strong and concise descriptions, and explore real examples of what worked and why. So this isn't about doing more, it's about doing correct. By the end of the session, you'll know how to present your efforts with clarity, with confidence, with a specific strategy, whether you're applying for the common application, the UCs, the MIT, then even or if you're even looking at applications beyond USA, looking across in UK as well, today's session is typically going to help you understand those differences, those nuances. So clear your distractions, keep your notes open, and get ready to think how you're going to be showcasing your impact. And as always, the question and answer session will be at the end of the presentation itself. Would also request everyone to drop your questions that you'd have during the session itself on the chat section itself, along with any technical difficulties. Now, before we move on to the topic of today, I'll quickly introduce you to the organization. So Let's Unbound began with the focus on life building, empowering elementary and middle school students with STEM, life skills, and mentorship. And as these students progressed to high schools, they started seeking college admissions guidance, and that's where we listen. We evolved our services to seamlessly integrate the storytelling through applications into our already well-established mentoring programs. Now, by combining personalized learning, skill development, and strategic admission support, we guide students right from their early academic years to top global universities. We have worked with more than 4,000 kids across 25 countries, delivering 125 hours of expert mentoring. Our commitment to excellence has earned us a global rating of 4.9 out of a 5. And we're really proud to have partnered with organizations as Harvard Students Agencies, Arizona State University Prep Digital, which really ensures that the students that we work with receive world-class educational experiences before they get started with their undergrad experience. Moving on to the other co-founders in the organization. So I'll introduce you to Amol on the left. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's an education visionary. He's got experiences with Tata and Exceed, which is India's largest edtech platform. Amol has helped scale impactful educational solutions across 2,000 schools in 6 countries, impacting more than 250,000 students. Nishant on your right, he is, as we call him, Professor Nishant. He's a mentor, he's an educator. He's really the brains behind many of the learning pathways that we share. With 14 plus years of experience across academia, across industry, he has counseled more than 1,000 students and has designed curriculum solutions right from K-12 to executive MBA programs. He's an alumnus of SP Jan, a top-rated teacher and a proud mentor of change under Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog. Now, a bit in-depth introduction about myself. As I had said, I'm a co-founder within the organization. I spent the last decade plus within investments and edtech, and I've worked with organizations as Jaguar Land Rover, Citibank, and Standard Charter across the various domains that I have worked for. And within education, I've worked with Crimson Education and Added before I had, started across with Let's Unbound and I joined here across as a career consultant counselor helping students in the complete journey up to that application stage. Right, so that was more across into the introduction from our side. Would like to just know a little bit about you guys as well. So we just want to hear which grade everyone today who has joined us is in. So if you could just quickly do this poll, it'll just pop up onto your screen now. So you could just drop in the grade. If you're grade 8 and below, you could select option number one. And likewise. And this is for 25, 26. So if you're finishing the grade you're finishing in 2026 is the one that you need to write across there. So we do have good amount of students, joining us across from 10th, kids also joining from 8 and below, the kids in ninth as well. So all these years are pretty much ideal for us to start down this journey of understanding the activities. All the kids that are here today in 11th or 12th, it doesn't mean that you need to start your activities now. You need to understand your activities in a better way from today. So once you move into your application journey, they're much more reflective over your overall profile. Right now, just moving across to the next uh, question. Just 1 second, I'm stopping this one. So I'm just moving across to the next one, which is the country for undergraduation you're largely interested in. If you could just drop that specific poll there itself. Right. So majority of the applicants are interested towards USA today. So we will be keeping that as a primary aspect. A couple of students for UK as well, but USA is where we will lie majority of the focus. Right. So that's with the polls itself. So I've got to understand the audience that has joined us across today. Now, just moving across to a quick introduction of the session or the session roadmap itself. We will have to start off by understanding the application platform, right? What's the narrative in terms of USA, the components, the weightages, the different platforms, activities list. Very important if you're applying to different universities via different platforms. It gets very important for you to understand how you need to list down those activities. The main part of the presentation will then just follow in terms of the activity list. Why do they matter? What are the most common type of them? What makes an activity impressive? And how to build an impressive activity list. We will then move across to our approach, which is going to be looking at various student journey pathways, preparation timelines, our success stories, and services. And as we always conclude every session with resources. Right, now starting with the presentation itself. So we will first get into the whole part of understanding that how does an admission officer look at your profile? Why do the activities list become so important in USA? First thing to understand about US is the well lopsided profile. Now, why is that important? One of those key reasons that a lot of admission officers do talk about is the way the application itself is set out, where it is not mandatory for you to declare your majors. Thus, as an admission officer, the person is not just looking at your academic journey or your academic profile, but your overall profile, your overall personality. They say 3 out of 5 students that apply do not, I mean, sorry, 3 to 5 out of 10 students that normally do apply do not state down the major that they will be studying. So that's where the situation in terms of a Harvard admission officer is looking for that leadership part. Stanford is looking for impact innovativeness, where all both of these things can be typically defined as the profile required for the institute that you're applying for. On the other side, the well lopsided, what does that typically mean? Well lopsided means like the letter T, where you've got a few areas of depth and a few areas of breadth. So this is very important before I get into that activity list, because that activity list is exactly that step number one, where these profiles start to get described. And again, just for the ease of the parents and the students joining us across today, it really doesn't mean that every activity that you need to show has to have that vertical aspect of mastery or in depth. There can be a lot of participatory activities as well. So whenever you're sitting down to, firstly get an overall sense of a list that you may be looking at, try to list down everything that you are interested in. List down everything that you believe you're, really goes on to define you as a person, regardless of a story of winning, regardless of international achievements. Then that's the whole crux of that well lopsided part in that statement that you can see. So the well lopsided profile is what a US admission officer is looking for. One of the key places that he's going to be searching for this information is going to be your activity list. So with that established, let's now just move in to the common application platform. And one thing that you will realize while I'll be describing you all of these various factors is that your the whole process, be it common app, be it the UC system, be it the MIT system, they're all major or major blind in that way, or major agnostic, where you have the same entrance exam, the SAT, ACT, regardless of the major that you'd be studying. But before we get into, individual aspects, I would just for me to give you that understanding that it's not just at that profile level that you'll constantly see the application process being major agnostic, but there are also various other steps. Now, before we move on to describing all of these five different pillars, it's important to remember that Common App is just one of the platforms students use to apply to US colleges. Right? It is a very popular one. It allows you to apply up to 20 colleges at once. But you do also have systems as the Universities of California one, famously called the UC system, has its own platform where you can apply up to all 9 undergraduation campuses in one go. Universities of Texas primarily uses Apply Texas. UT Austin also does use the common application. There are also places where you could apply simply direct. And apart from this, there are also places, as I was saying, in terms of applying simply direct, the MIT, the Georgetown have their own unique platforms as well. Despite these differences, the core components, the things that you see at the bottom, the academics, the extracurriculars, the essays, letters of recommendations, and interviews, they all remain the same. These are the core components that will remain nearly identical. And that's what we're going to decode here. How do we see it at the bottom of the screen, understand what's typically required, and then have every platform in USA typically prepared for? The first column that you can see, it's academics. And this is where we start across with the foundation itself. Here it includes that aspect of the entrance exam, either the SAT or ECT. As I have said, if it is required by a specific institute, regardless of what you'd be going on to study, it makes much more sense to submit that ACT or SAT score. Now, moving on, grade 12 predicted scores are also going to be submitted. So, for example, all of the students who are looking at a fall of 2027 admit, you would be applying this year by November, or your applications will be completed by Jan next year. And you'd realize by that time, you do not have your grade 12 final results. You're only working on predictive grades. And these predictive grades are based on the transcripts from 9 till 11. And also do remember they're also individually submitted. So that grade sheet from 9 to 11th almost has a double impact in your overall application, in your overall profile, that they get submitted individually, and they're also used to create your predictives of grade 12. For all of the students that are not doing an international syllabus, the only add-on step that you guys may need to do is an IELTS or a TOEFL. And also, just to remind you, if you've got a good SAT score and a good English score, you can use the statement of, the medium of teaching has been English, and your SAT score can come and complement your IELTS score, where you don't need to even give that IELTS itself. So the only difference that I'll at this moment say any domestic kid, CBSE kid, ICSE kid needs to do is that IELTS or TOEFL. Now, beyond that, your academic column, as I'd say, is exactly the same. MIT would use your entrance exam. Georgia Tech would use your entrance exam. It's just that within UCs, they do not look into SAT or ACT. So the UC system, you do not need to give that SAT or ACT. But beyond these 3 to 4 different aspects in the academic pillar, there's nothing extra that you need to do. Now we move on to the next section, which is the extracurriculars. And as a matter of fact, we won't stick too long in this area because, this is the core of our presentation today. When you're applying to the common application section, this is where you need to list up to 10 activities that really showcase who are you beyond your grades, beyond your academics. So these could be academic clubs, they could be sport activities, it could be music, it can be internship, it can be community service, anything that shows consistent involvement and growth. So this section gives you the first glimpse of your personal story, the theme of who you are, and how this application is going to be taking up shape. A quick add-on in UC system, you need to list up to 20 activities across 4 categories, which is volunteering, work experience, academic programs, and extracurriculars. We'll come back into this a little bit more detail. MIT will only ask you for 4 activities, but it goes extremely deep. UT Austin would allow you to submit your resume, and they would just typically use that resume to understand your overall activity list. Now, from the extracurriculars, we move on to the third, column of essays. So now this is from where you move on from the 10 activities, then you move into something much more deeper, right? Your personal statement, that first document within essays. This is a 650-word essay in the common application where you'd be defining your overall personality. You'd be really showing that what is the narrative that is being created beyond just those lists. Your whys, your values, your evolution will all be coming across as part of this one section. Now, if you move on, be within the essays from your personal statement within Common App itself, there will be college specific essays. So every college essay, every college is going to ask you to write one or two specific essays where these are where your personal narrative really starts to align with the college narrative. So if your personal essay is that about your curiosity for social impact through tech, and you're applying to, for example, UC Berkeley, this is where you need to show that interest fits with the cultures and offering at the university you're applying. So now the documents, so now the whole aspect, or the whole aspect within the personal statement to the essays is define yourself on a personality level and then match it to the college you're applying to. Remember, within the common application, you're applying to 20 different universities. So the personal statement is a common doc that goes across to all colleges, but dependent on the university you're applying, they'll be giving you a couple of essays to write. Now, if I move this on to UCs, UC is one university that you're applying to, constitution with their 9 campuses. So they don't have this differentiation between the personal statement and essays. They will be giving you 8 PIQs to select from, which are personal insight questions. You need to select 4 of them and answer them through, right? And each of those PIQs would be 350 words each, and would be quite a challenge in those terms of making sure that you've been able to convey everything about your overall profile, right? And remember that in terms of the words, it goes way beyond double of what is required within common application, for the simple reason that the personal statement and essays in the case of UCs have been merged into one. In terms of MIT, they will ask you very specific prompts about your community, about challenges, about what excites you. And UT Austin also has, short answers that act as supplements, like explaining leadership roles or career goals. Now, till this stage, all of your documents have been interlinked, have been, put across that you submit your grades, your academic, your activities, the personal statement, and the college essays. Now, from this point onwards, the letter of recommendation and the interviews, your pillar 4 and 5, this is what we like to call the verification stage. So the teacher would want to, describe you on a much more personal level. It should go much beyond just saying that the student exams well, behaves well, fares well. It should start talking about in the same narrative in which how you have described yourself. So overall, the idea then becomes that if you describe yourself as a leader and your teacher also describes yourself as a leader, your majority of the activities in that case has been completed and you have gotten that right kind of narrative. The way admission officers typically treat this area is that if they are able to identify that this application has been written for this specific student by reading the letter of recommendation, it makes much more clear. It is that much more coincised and synchronized documents at that stage. Right. So MIT would request you to put in a maths or a science letter of recommendation if you're making a declared science application, along with one humanities teacher letter of recommendation. Again, two. In terms of UT Austin, the requirement is only of one, but you can always submit a second one for help. UCs is a little bit different on this part. They do not take any letter of recommendation. So everything that they want to hear from you is coming through your own voice. And eventually, dependent on the college that you're going for, there may be or maybe not some interviews that you may need to take up. Now, moving across to the quick weightages, we won't stick too long to this one part, just to let you understand what are the various steps. So treat these percentages as a stairway to your final application, in which the first 40% or the first 4 steps in the 10-step staircase is going to be your SAT and ACT, along with your grade 12 predictables and your grade 911 scores. All of that are the first 4 steps in the 10. The next 3 steps are your extracurricular activities, exactly what our presentation is today based on. And then the last 30% is the personal statement, essays, and letters of recommendation. And this 30% is actually based on the activity list again. Normally, it is seen that if you will be describing anything in your personal statement in terms of activities, it's a lesser chance that you'll be describing your academics or the time that you had given an exam, but largely a time that you'll be talking about your various activities, be it academic oriented, be it non-academic oriented. So overall, you could see within the US application, the whole journey before your grade 12 is going to be extremely crucial because that's the 60% of this whole application itself. Right now, just moving across that, how do different universities ask for activities? So, as I've said, today's session is all about that one crucial part of your university application, your activities list, and covering how different universities and platforms may be asking for it. So, whether you're applying to Common App, Texas, universities of California, or directly to schools like MIT, you'll see that while the goal is the same, showcasing who you are outside that classroom, the way that they do it, each university may ask it in a specific different way. So now it's really time to deep dive and understand the differentiation beyond just the numbers. So yes, common application, you are required to submit 10 activities, where again, the platform itself is common app. The word limitation is typically 150 characters that you need to use per description. So it's a very short field to really describe your overall activity, and you have another 50 to 100 characters to define the role that you were taking across on it. Most important things that I'll be really saying in terms of this type or on this stage is, so keep it tight, write concisely, focus on what you did, how you did it, and what did it impact around you when you're thinking about filling up those 150 characters. Now, in terms of moving on to the next one, your UT Austin. Normally, you would be requested to put in any 5 to 10 activities, which can be done simply through the resume itself. And there are no certain character counts or word limit counts. So you can go into extreme detail wherever you think it is relevant. So you could largely look into the UT Austin and say that my capstone activities are the things that are going to go into that UT Austin. Now, the next up is is the University of California, the UC system. This is where it's extremely different. So they don't use the common application platform. Instead, as I've said, they've got their own application that allows you to put up to 20 activities, but divided into four very specific categories. So you have volunteering, you've got paid work, you've got academic enrichment, and then you've got this other area as other activities. Each entry gives you 350 characters. So you have more space than the common app, and you have much more activities to showcase in your UC activity list beyond the common app. And also do remember, common app, a lot of those ones would be having that SAT exam. So having all of these 20 activities and not the SAT is exactly how UC system is going about and selecting the students that they're looking for. If finally, MIT only asks for 4 activities, but they give you around 400 words each to describe. So you can see where Common App started with 150 characters, UC's has got 350 characters. MIT does not have characters, but it has words, and it's 200 words. So they want you to see creatively. They want to see your curiosity. They want to see long-term interest. So this is less about how many things that you have done, but more about in what detail have you gone into your most important activities. So the students who start thinking across in terms of that common application platform, your 4 MIT activities are largely your capstone activities. It's that same statement that I had repeated for UT Austin. When you're moving into your UC system, it's much more about showcasing your overall profile, your overall activities, moving a lot into the breadth aspect as well. So the key takeaway here is, even though that all these platforms, want you to, or they want to understand what you are beyond your academics, but they are really asking you to in the way that they some give you a different kind of a space, a different kind of word requirements, while there are a few more that would be maybe taking you into much more detail, but asking you for lesser activity. So just knowing this upfront, right from grade 10 and 11, in how exactly all of this would be submitted is going to be of a very crucial impact. Now, why do these activities matter so much? So now that we have seen how these different platforms ask for your activities, from Common App's 10 entries to UC's 20 categorized one to MIT's 4 capstone activities, let's really step back and ask the real question now. Why do these activities even matter so much? So point number one here is that US colleges don't just look at grades. So this is the heart of that holistic admissions. Academics are essential, there's no doubt about it. Your transcripts, your test scores, the GPA reflect your academic readiness for undergrad education, but they don't tell the whole story. In fact, For most of the top schools, your activities and essays weigh just as much, sometimes even more, once you have cleared the academic bar. I usually tell students this is the foundation. Academics matter, but they're just one piece of the whole puzzle. Colleges receive, for example, tens and thousands of applications from students with strong grades. Pick up MIT as an example. They receive at least 48,000 students with great grades where they need to select 2,000. So what they're really trying to find out is who are you beyond the numbers? Do you match the narrative in which we are going to be selecting students? So that's that point, part number one, that these colleges are going well beyond your grades to make that selection. Point number two is they want to know who you are beyond that specific classroom. So here's where your personality, your values, the direction begins to show. So activities are, the first sign of who you are and what have you selected to do when no one had made it mandatory. The whole volunteering aspect, I'm not talking about community service volunteering, any volunteering that you have done, it really showcases to the admission officer that as a student, you're going out and taking up much bigger challenges which are not really made mandatory across for you. So activities, so what they typically want to show, that they show across what goes on to excite you beyond the laws and regulations that you have gone and selected. Where do you choose to spend your time? And that word choose is very important. Do you stick with things? That's the whole longevity that they want to see with activities. So remember in Common App, they will ask you, are you doing this since grade 9? You've been doing this in grade 10, 11th, or 12th. So wherever you're showing that longevity and how long have you stuck with things is going to be extremely important in this whole application journey. Lastly, they want to see, have you taken ownership, solved a problem, or led something new? So this section, sorry, let me just go back. So this section is, yeah, is not just about the application in terms of just putting in the grades. It's the chance to tell your story through your actions itself. So this is the chance to showcase that what you are beyond just your grades. This is where a violin recital, for example, a social campaign, a coding project, or even tutoring people around you, especially underprivileged, every week can become meaningful. It starts to reflect your intent and impact. Lastly, invest activities is to show a list. Now, I want you to pause and really highlight each of the four boxes, whether with your cursor or in your thought process. I mean, obviously, you can't do it on that online aspect, but try to think what of these four activities is something that really resonates with you. So, firstly, starting across with leadership. This isn't always about, trying to become the club president. This could really mean by taking initiatives. So this is when I'm asking, have you been in a situation where, you wanted your team or your school to participate in football and had to start the club itself? Or where you wanted your team or college to participate in robotics and had to start the robotics club yourself. So this is that part where you have taken initiative, you have set direction, and you've influenced others even in your own small spaces. Initiative. So this is about some starting out something. This is the exact same continuity that I've left across from leadership. So creating a blog, launching a community project, writing a book, these shows that self-drive, that self-discipline, some things that college admission officers deeply value. Thirdly, moving across in terms of passion. So, are you doing something because you were just asked to do it or ordered to do it, or is it something that you do typically care about because it's not just a simple checklist item? Passion shows in how long have you been stuck with that activity, so that duration time is going to be very important, right? How far have you gone on to explore it, right? So that amount of hours a week and weeks a year that you write in your common application goes on to explain that. Lastly, the impact. So what changes had come because of your direct involvement? Did you, get some specialized help from outside, resolve a problem? Did you even, did it affect, a couple of people? Did it affect a few millions? And to be honest, the number is not important. The amount of impact is going to be much more important. So this is what colleges are actually looking for. Know who you are, what you cared about, and what have you done with it. Right now, before I close the slide across, sorry, I think I've just mistakenly again gone on to the next slide. Before I close this slide itself, so this is, the shift. This stage becomes that shift from what you submit, like activities and essays, and why does it typically matter, and why colleges pay such close attention to it. And now that we have understood, right, why do these typical activities matter, let's now try to move across and try to understand what type of activities typically lie out there. So we will first start with the academic activities. You'll see that there are a lot more qualifiers than students usually think about. Whenever we talk about academic activities, students are naturally thinking about grades, they're thinking about school endeavors. While you could also first start thinking in terms of academic clubs. So let's start with this most obvious one. Clubs like Maths Club, Science Club, Economics Forum are classic academic activities. But what really matters is what you did in them. How did you learn? Did you participate regularly? Did you organize events? Did you tutor peers? Or did you lead a team? So it's not just about the name of the club, but it's about the action and the impact that you have left across. The second type of academic activities that you could look at, it's research or projects. So this includes, independent research, science fair submissions, mentorship programs, or even initiatives, for example, ISEF. The key is to show that you have gone way beyond what has been taught in your books, what has been taught in your class, to really explore something on your own with the exact right amount of curiosity and depth. So this is a huge asset for students applying to research focused schools like an MIT or a U Chicago or a UC Berkeley. Now, moving on to the third activity that you could look at, internship. So, whether it's a formal internship at a startup or helping out, let's say, a family business, volunteering with an NGO, or shadowing someone in a lab, all of this would typically count. It doesn't need to be fancy with a brand name. What you do in the internship is much more important rather than the brand that you're going to be, associating with. Fourthly, the courses, which is also the last one thing that you could look across at. And within the research and projects, I also do assume the competitions to be a part of it. In terms of courses, a lot of students, forget this one, especially when you're going for UCs, where you've got 20 activities. Your courses really do give you a lot of good number of activities to add. So if you have taken an online certification on Coursera, on edX, completed a course, for example, your Harvard CS50 or mathematical thinking by Stanford, or you've gone ahead and taken AP courses that your school doesn't offer, all of those independent academic initiatives, courses are going to show that right kind of discipline and self-motivation. So what counts as an activity? It's, I would say, a lot more than what we've always imagined. It includes every aspect, anything that you can do or show that really showcases the activity and personality that you have as a person. Now, moving into the much more expansive side of your activity list, the non-academic activities. So I'll be just touching base on a few of these very quickly. The first one, community service, very important. Almost every application will definitely have that community service here. So from organizing NGO efforts to teaching underprivileged students or participating in clean up drives, the reflection of empathy and civic responsibility is a very, very important core component in this application. So don't just think in terms about hours, but really think in terms of the impact that you have left, the intention that you brought onto the page. Now, moving on, creative arts, so painting, design, graphic designing, digital art, photography. These are all amazing ways to showcase your creative side. And yes, if you've been consistent, colleges do consider them as extremely serious activities. Moving on to performance arts, so whether you dance, you do theater, any spoken word, any band performance, it shows communication, stage presence, and confidence. So if you've performed, you've competed, and you've created something original, make sure that you're going ahead including it. Now, moving on to the fourth criteria, sports. Again, it doesn't need to be a national level activity. Participation in school teams, participation in club tournaments, or even consistent training at a sport shows that right kind of discipline, shows that teamwork and stamina. Now, moving on to the second row of activities, public speaking. So think of activities as Model United Nation. Think of debates. TEDx talks are really good. Elocutions are very well in that same stage. So these show that leadership, articulation, and persuasion skill, a valuable thing both in humanities and STEM in that way in today's, working world. Moving across to passion projects, competitions, and various other things. So there isn't really a specific definition, but by passion projects, what I mean, anything self-initiated and also connected to any of the other natural abilities that you have, doing something as a blog, starting off your own YouTube channel, a podcast, thinking about a startup or a social campaign, it all would typically count. Moving on to the seventh part, the competition. So whether it's Olympiads, hackathons, business pitch events, or really case study competition, all of these really speak about your problem solving ability and your problem solving skills under that immense pressure. Right. So now we'll be just moving across, having looked at the various activities list themselves. What really makes an activity impressive? So so far what we've understood in the presentation is why are these activities important? What are these activities? And what really makes one of these activities typically impressive? So these 5 points that I've put across in front of you are really the core of this. So that first thing is that depth versus breadth. Most students really feel pressure to do almost everything under the sky or try to replicate a profile of multiple people that have taken different routes towards their application. So they try to join 10 different clubs. They will try to do 7 8 different online courses. They will try to play music. They'll try to get into sports. And what all of this does, it sacrifices the depth for just that opportunity of breadth. And this is where the truth is. Colleges don't want to see just variety. They want to see depth. They want to see mastery. They want to see a certain stage where you as a person really get stuck onto completing it in its complete sense. So they want to know, did the student immerse themselves in something bigger than themselves? Did they care enough to keep going when it got really difficult? Did they learn something from this overall project? Or as a matter of fact, did they learn for the joy of learning and not just specifically for the grades? So, for example, a student who has spent a year building a database of all stray animals in the neighborhood, tagging, feeding schedules, linking to Google Maps, even though it wasn't for a school assignment, that shows that right kind of depth. As a matter of fact, it even shows that right kind of community service, the impact that you're leaving across behind all of these activities. Now, moving on to initiative. So intellectual vitality is, it's all about self-motivation. It's all about description. It's not about a steady certain definition. We will be trying to understand this word in just the next slide itself. But on the current stage, we're just trying to understand what do we really mean by initiative. So did I build something that did not exist before? Did you start a club at your school? Did you organize a speaker series on topics that you really care about? Have you created a newsletter, a website, or an app that really solves real world problems? So here's the real secret. Initiative is rarely convenient. It is going to be inconvenient. That's where it makes that whole activity so impressive. When you step outside the bounds of a school expectation and go after an idea any which ways, that kind of shows to the admission officer that as a student, you're looking at challenges way beyond the whole aspect of just finishing up or just creating tick boxes in the application itself. Now, moving in terms of leadership, colleges really do care a lot about leadership, but it's not the way that normally students think. A lot of students really think that, becoming a head boy, a head girl, a club president is actually what counts. But you have to become someone who can guide, others towards much more clarity. Who's got this ability to solve problem that no one else was ready to step up and fix. Really create a system, motivates action or improves processes in a way that it hasn't been attempted before. Fourth point, recognition. So now, while recognition, as I've said a lot of times in my presentations and webinars, by recognition, certifications isn't like a thing that always does the job. It tells the college that, how does the outside world really see you? It does show in terms of participation, but if done in the right way, it could come across as an award because that's also recognition. A newspaper mention, a competitive program that you have been selected for, a teacher's nominating you without being asked. So be careful as well. Recognition itself is not the goal, is not the result. It's not the goal as well. It is just your pathway moving towards the right kind of activities. Right. Lastly, it's longevity. So as I've been saying consistently on your application, you have to write there that for how many hours a week have you been doing it? For how many weeks a year have you been attempting all of these activities? So then you're able to really showcase them in that right kind of a manner. And you can showcase as many as hours that you've put here. Right. Now, just moving across to why start early, right? This is a very important part about our presentation today. Right. So we've just saw that what makes an activity stand out, the depth, the initiative, the leadership, recognition, longevity. But here's the hard truth. You can't build all of those activities in the last minute. If you want to stand out as an applicant in grade 12, the real work starts much more early. And that's what the slide is really all about, the why behind the early stage. So the intellectual vitality itself takes time. We have, spoken a lot just now on intellectual vitality and aspect that it's easier to identify rather than define. Just doing a lot of college courses and examinations doesn't showcase that engagement and enjoyment. The activities that are done in the right way through that introspection goes up to show that intellectual vitality. So reading a book that wasn't assigned to you, running a side project that no one had asked for, digging into ideas just because you're curious. These are all of those very important things that an admission officer wants to see. And one of the best ways to communicate all of this is to start as early as possible. Now, moving on, recognition isn't an instant activity. So let's be honest, recognition does matter. It's not everything, by the way, but it still gives you that right kind of credibility in your story. But do remember, it takes time to build. So, for example, following up on a podcast, traction for a website, results for a community campaign, submissions for a competition, media coverage, or let's say faculty recommendation. All of these various activities take time for them to be completed. So it's not to just say that it's going to be something which is highly instant, that you think about it today and by tomorrow you're already in the right slides. Now, moving on, initiative needs space. We've talked about initiative earlier, building something from the scratch, but initiative takes much more time, much more energy. If you want to launch, for example, a nonprofit, publish a research paper, or create a young run youth app, you need to take time to validate your idea. You need to see or find a mentor, get a feedback, fail and course correct as always, and then obviously trying to scale up this overall activity. Lastly, your continued consistency shows the maturity. Here's the final piece. So your timeline does matter. Admission officers don't just look at what you did, they also look at when did you do it and for how long did you end up doing it. That's why they asked you, have you been doing this activity since grade 9, 10th, or 11th? Right now, just moving across to the next slide, I would just request everyone just for a minute. I want to have a quick glass of water, having a bit of a dry throat today. And would request everyone, you could just grab yourself a quick glass of water and we'll just move into the last 10 minutes of our presentation. Right. So we'll now just get restarted. We will be looking at how to build an activity list before we move on to the next part of the presentation. Right. So how do we build a really good activity list? So start by, by understanding your interest. So the student, for example, who was passionate about two things, for example, food and social justice, that combination might sound really unusual at first, but for her, it made perfect sense. And I'm just using this one simple example to showcase to you guys. So she cared deeply about ethical sourcing, community welfare, and that was her natural starting point. The second step that this kid took, she linked the school role to a local activity. Rather than waiting for an opportunity, she joined her school's fair trade committee, which worked on promoting ethical sourcing in school cafeteria and among students. So this gave her the real experience, a support structure, and an early sense of leadership. The step three then became in terms of expanding the scope. After some time, she realized the work of the committee was rather limited in reach. So she asked herself, how can I take these values beyond the school and reach a much more wider community? So this is where many students stopped, but she pushed forward. The step four then becomes brainstorm those project ideas. She started brainstorming. Some of the ideas included running a social media campaign, organizing school workshops, and eventually the most exciting one, creating the Fair Trade Festival, a public event that brought together vendors, students, and community members to promote awareness and change. Fifth step on this slide, shortlist and plan. To turn the idea into a real project, she used tools like SWOT analysis to evaluate the strengths and risks. She set SMART goals, which is basically specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. That laid out the week by week action plan. She also created a working budget and started, outlining everything that she needed, from event permits to sound systems. Now, moving on to the next slide, which is step number 6, where she started to execute the plan itself week by week. So, with her blueprint ready, she rolled up the sleeves and got to work. She split her plan into across 6 weeks, delegated outreach, logistics, fundraising amongst her team. She reached out to the vendors for stalls, applied for permissions, coordinated school facilities, and recruited the volunteers. The seventh step then became of building the public presence. So she knew that event success also depends on its visibility. So she created a very simple website using Wix, and she started an Instagram page, to get much more countdowns happening there, speaker reveals. She started looking at posters. She started with an email campaign and a press release for local news outlets. The eighth step then, naturally becomes to add that unique element. So she invited local businesses owners who ran ethical chocolate company, for example, as a guest speaker. She also included an interactive art installation where attendees could write pledges about food choices per se. And then eventually the step number 9 becomes the launch, and for you to document everything. Largely, the step 10th is then that follow up and reflection. So you're very sure by the time you're getting to your application stage, you know very clearly what did you extract from this one specific activity. Right now, we will be just moving on to the next part of the presentation. But before I do so, I'll just be showcasing you the various ways in which the common application your activities are typically stated. So you could have a quick read here of a student, who had made this application, the work that they have done in science, in computer science, and music as well, and how that is being typically represented onto that common application platform. Right. So this is some more example, but from an humanities perspective. So it's the same thing again. It's just those kind of activities would be, just changing across in that sense. Right now, just moving on to the next set of examples. You could just have a quick read about it. I'll just read it again for the people, maybe finding it a little bit too small in terms of text. So, founded New Zealand's second largest young women's network with 8,000 members, led STEM and gender equality advocacy, hosted 400 delegate conference, won 2016 Young Leader Award. This is another one, launched student-led music therapy project for undeserved youth, coordinated the teacher-student matches, donated instruments, and planned fundraising concerts. right? So these are just to give you how, a few more realistic activities have looked like. Right now, we're just concluding our session in terms of the approach. So how we start working with students is right from grade 9th, 10th, and 11th. In ninth, we spend a considerable time understanding their candidacy narrative, understanding their strengths, understanding their interest. We make them join clubs and go through with courses and competitions. And throughout the years, we'll be having a lot of reflective sessions in terms of personal statement and understanding whatever activity that you're doing, how is it going ahead in defining you as an overall personality. Eventually, the grade 11th year is selecting your subject, working on capstone activities, helping you with your standardized examinations, where then the 12th is all about the application in terms of personal statements, the essays, the closure of activities, submission of activities itself. And we will continue to support you till the stage, your applications have been accepted. This is just to showcase all of the activities that we have done in terms of the three pillars that we have had in terms of academics, profile building, admission test preps. So these are the various activities that you could have a quick look across at. Right. So this is now to just share a couple of success stories with you as well. So you could have a quick look here in terms of the various work that our students, the various admissions that our students have gotten. This is a kid that has been admitted into Dartmouth, and you could have a quick look into his overall application that way, right? So you could see that he's not just a student who was doing a single kind of activity, but was involved in various different activities and various different manners in terms of an essay competition, in terms of basketball, in terms of singing. So these are the various things that the student had achieved before the application had gone across in terms of Dartmouth. Now, just moving across to another student journey from Rice University. So you could see again here the same student, excelling in different aspects, Model United Nations, other various activities within the profile, being a head girl, and that overall list of activities getting the student through with the application. While we're at the stage of just sharing the various success stories, I'll just change my presentation shortly, and I'll be just showing you a couple of few successful, admissions that kids of ours have gotten. So you could just have a look, the early admits on your screen currently, right? So these are the top universities within USA, within global, that our kids have been admitted to. And these are a few focused ones that you could also have a look across at in UK and also top global universities within Australia. Right, now just coming back to the presentation that we're looking at. So as we always do at the end of every session, we share the various presentations that we will be doing for this coming month. This month itself, this presentation itself is the first one that we have done for the month itself. Tomorrow, we are doing another presentation, which is on Math Kangaroo. It's a Math Kangaroo mock test. So any of you guys who are really interested in this area, definitely have a look across at it. March 14th, we are looking at, the costly admissions that students make. So it is overall parent-student guidance towards your US and UK college applications. 21st March is we're going to be looking at passion projects decoded. So how do you really stand out in Ivy League admissions? 22nd March, we'll be looking at how to get 800 in the SAT reading and writing section. And this month, we'll be really capping off our presentations in a big way. We'll be having a student of ours who will be explaining her own personal journey to the Higgs boson collider in Switzerland, the CERN Institute. So she had gone up to that institute and had participated there. Anaya Jan, student who's currently just moving into grade 12. So she'll be sharing her experience of how the Lodha Genius program really took her all the way into that collision data. So from Higgs data, from collision data to the Higgs, this is going to be a master class on the CERN journey. So do make sure that you join for as many of these presentations. Beyond these webinars, we also do use these newsletters. So you could use the QR code on your screen now just to access all of these documents, all of this information in a written platform. We also use these two other platforms, the YouTube one, the WhatsApp one, to just showcase or showcase on all of this information that I have shared across with you today. Right? Any of you guys are interested in SAT diagnostics. So do use this QR code and you would be able to get the right kind of support there. So this brings us to the last slide of the presentation today. I'll be now just using the chat section to see any questions that we can help you across in with today. Right. So how to go on to Scotland. So I think within Edinburgh, it's Edinburgh University, if you're talking about in that way, Aryan. You need to join across in a one-on-one session. It's not a complete activity list, but various different things that need to be looked across at. Right. Can I get the SAT diagnostic link again? Vivan, we'll just share that to you directly. But what I'll do, I'll just go back to you. You could use this screen here again. Yes, we do guide students in their sports profile, all of those kids that are looking for a sports admission. So we're currently working with two kids. I mean, I am currently directly working with two kids. One of them is for swimming, the other is for football, and sorry, the third one is in gymnastics. So there are three specific kids that I'm currently dealing with US applications and helping them in their complete sports journey. Right. Are there any other questions there for anyone if you'd want to take across? I see a individual question from Rohit. Don't think so it's of any value. Right. So if there's no other questions today, then we will just conclude our session. I'm just seeing, I think there's one last question that has just popped up. I wouldn't say, it's not, it is good to be part of a team, but it's important to be a part of the team if it defines you as a personality. See, one solution doesn't fit all. One kind of narrative is not going to be the narrative for every other application. But the teamwork is always going to be good. You can show it through sports, you could show it through other activities. And to be a captain is more of a leadership, I would say an institutional leadership. What did you do being the captain is going to be the more crux of your application journey. And as I'm saying, your football, the sports team, fantastic things to use across. And dependent on the alternatives, we'll have to sit down together and understand what are your own actual alternatives that I could suggest you. So if we could just connect, on a one-on-one session, you could now just use the QR code now on your screen to select that Yatharth, and then we could get on that one-on-one suggestion. I mean, in terms of few vague ones, I'll say anything within sports, anything within music, anything within, I'd say, fine arts, performance arts, community service, public speaking, trekking, cubing, all of these various ideas can be used. But as I'd say, if you get in touch with a one-on-one session, I'd be able to help you in a much clearer and directive way. And don't worry, a one-on-one session does not mean that you need to pay and you need to start working. It's only there for us to help you as much as we can. So will being the captain of a schoolhouse also be definitely relevant? All of these things are relevant. But it's at the end of the day, how does it really connect to your overall narrative? How much strongly are you, showcasing that leadership profile? And what have you done as the captain of that schoolhouse is much more relevant. This is a very good thing that you have said. I mean, I'm just reading the name, Ayan, that especially if you have taken your house cup for the first time in 11 years and you have been the first school captain to do it, what you need to do is highlight what have you done differently, right? That got your team in that certain area. So I think one suggestion for you, Ayan, as well is that can we just do the session? So I'll ask Ayan and Yatharth if you could just drop your mobile numbers one-on-one to me. So obviously it stays private and I could just pass it on to my team who would then just set up the session. Otherwise, what you could do is just use the QR code on your screen, use the number on your screen and ask them to connect me to directly. You can be getting in touch with me by Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday on the latest. Right. Otherwise, you could drop me your mobile numbers. I'll ask some of my team to contact you today evening itself or latest by tomorrow or Monday. Right. So are there any other questions for today's session or we can conclude? I think I have for Yatharth. Yatharth, I've got your mobile number. Ayan, I think the same has happened. Just give me 1 second, guys. I think I'll just push it to my team immediately. Right. So Yatharth, I have shared your number with my team and they will be getting in touch with you, I think, by today or tomorrow latest. and you'd be able to, take this forward. Ayan, I've shared both your mom and your number. So I think either of you would be getting the call. Right. Now, if there are no other questions for today, then we can conclude off the session. Right. Thank you for joining us across today. I'm stopping the share. I hope this session was much more valuable for everyone who has joined us across. And thank you for staying late in the session itself.